interesting. We also have that in Thailand in the very old version we call, we play Tok Chair. And then we play Tok Chair, and then people who want to give loans or who want to borrow will go and group together. That's a very old version. Now we need to have the digital culture. Very interesting. And the next, and also the last presenter for these afternoon sessions will be on the very also interesting topic about the integrity. I'd like to welcome the professor from Japan and Professor Morikiwa Yasutomo from Rangsit University, the School of Law in Japan. And he has actually flew to Thailand 1 day ago, and I'm very honored to have him with us today. Please welcome him.
Thank you so much. Before I go into my talk, let me try to explain how my talk would be related to the first two talks, which is, I'm pretty good at this, so let me see. Jim had said that perhaps technology is the answer to make the global adaptation something that's not malignant but beneficial to human beings. He has, if I can say so, depicted capital as a sort of organized core, which has to be dealt with in an effective way using technology. Your presentation has made it very clear that, first of all, capital does not work in like a Greek fabrics. It's not organized in a static way. We use an euphemism. It has dynamic equilibrium. Put more in plain words, it's basically killing each other to see who ends up on top, becoming the alpha male. So it's the rat race in a very sophisticated field. If that's what organization of capital is all about, the more we learn about technology and how it can be practiced, I think if we apply that to the organization of citizens, then yes, technology might indeed be the answer. But, and here's the important message that I want to convey in my talk today. As long as you act as an individual, you cannot help but be like chimpanzees trying to become the alpha male. So if you are going to seriously adapt technological knowledge to citizenship, to make globalization into something that we like and can manage, we have to start thinking in terms of we. Rather than I, my, me, we have to think in terms of we the people and what we should do for our common interest. And that's what justice is all about. And I will try to show that today. A couple of things. Okay. First of all, in order to have an organization that can adapt and control globalization, the answer is not a world government. Some say it is. This is a field called global justice. And some say that a world government or a very tightly knit world federation is the answer to the problem. I don't think so. I think a stronger local government, loosely related to each other with the common interest of controlling globalization would be the answer. And in order to have that, we need to have a very good understanding of what makes local governments powerful. And the answer to this is the empowerment of the citizen. How does empowerment of citizen work in a world where globalization, the waves of globalization, before for the common interest of we the people. And so far, the best system that we got is called a democracy. Democracy works only if two conditions are satisfied. One, the people that we the people hire as managers of the system, we usually call them politicians, but in essence they are civil servants, that is, our servants, behave like servants and not like masters. Then the owners of the system who hire these civil servants, we the people, must be able to act like owners, think like one, and be responsible as owners of our common interests. Okay? And if all local governments sufficiently solidify in this fashion, then we have the elements, the building blocks for organizing globalization. And that is the strategy that I have. And in order to implement this strategy, I need to explain to everyone how democracy works. Those of you who grew up in America may tend to think that you know all about democracy, but you don't. So please be modest for half an hour and then kneel yours. Okay? Social justice, as I said, democracy is not a goal in itself. It's the method by which justice becomes possible. In order to understand democracy, therefore, we have to understand what justice is. And our usual conception of justice as an state, and static state, is not correct. Who says that's not correct? The Romans, people who devised Roman law, people who were best at implementing justice, given the terrible social conditions of those times, they had a very good idea of what justice is. And they said, Justitia est constant perpetua voluntas, ius sum quicque tribuent, which in plain English is justice is the constant, perpetual will. Provide each and everyone with one's rights. And this is written in the first part of the Justinian Code, or the Corpus Juris Civilis. I'm going to try to explain what this means by talking about justice and a society or a system. Okay? The owners, remember, to have a democracy, we need to find out whose will it is that, whose will it is, whose will are we talking about? Whose responsibility is it to provide each person with one's rights? It's the owners. It's basically the will of the owners of the system. And that's how we, as members of democracy, should think of ourselves. But the people that actually implement the necessary policies for making sure that our wishes are realized are the professionals that we hire to manage the system, usually called the politicians or representatives of the people. Okay? So the important thing is that when we vote for people, we do not choose masters. We choose the servants of, for us, who will work for us. And therefore, the civil servants that we choose must have certain qualities that are necessary for that person to be good servants, and not masters. And that's what integrity, about which I'll talk about today, is all about. You will notice that some public servants are better than others. So the obvious question we should ask is, what do they have that lazy-bum civil servants do not have? And the answer is called integrity. People didn't talk about integrity till about a decade ago. Now it's the buzzword. I understand that it is an important concept now that Professor Bicha is not trying to make people in the governmental tie understand. It's been the buzzword in OECD and in other international organizations. But like all buzzwords, people don't really know what this means. So today, we're going to try to put some context into this word. Okay? And I said that what the Romans said was justice is what is meant by integrity. I think, well, I hope you agree that the fit goes quite well. And I'll try to demonstrate that. Okay? Now, notice when we discussed justice, we had to find out whose will it was that is needed to provide justice. And the answer is both the owner and the managers must have this particular will, but especially the managers who are agents, whereas we are the principals. Features of integrity. Okay. So, what do we know about integrity? One, okay, we already saw the people who must have integrity are our servants. And in order to make clear what integrity is all about, there may be codes. Lawyers have codes of ethics. Codes of professional ethics can be understood as attempts to describe in what integrity consists of. It is difficult to codify, like in the case of the professional ethics of the judge. Principles are used. The important thing is both these attempts come close, but never enough to identify integrity, because this is following the rules. We call this compliance and not integrity. Integrity, as we saw, and I repeat once again, is what we should understand as the Roman law definition of justice. It's this will to provide justice. Notice that here, justice does not mean the end state. It's the attempt to understand the end state as an ideal which regulates us and to which we must try to attain, although we know full well that it will never be fully realized. That's the Kantian idea of what's called a regulative ideal. Character. Integrity, we tend to think that it's something that we have as parts of our professional personality. And that's important, but that's never enough. In order to have that character, you have to have a pretty good understanding of what justice is. And in law schools everywhere, and I have taught in Europe, US, and Japan, as well as in parts of Asia. For some strange reason, justice is never taught in law school. Only law is taught. But I believe that a 90-minute lecture on justice in all law schools do wonders to the education, because it provides us with conditioning too. Now, members of the legal profession, for instance, they need to have the know-how. That is, they need to be able to provide justice, to not just understand them. And that's what we do when we teach in law schools. So, I'm going to talk about the three things that are listed here. Character, understanding, and how to. The know-how in this order. So, the first part, the character. We can paraphrase this as the professional ethics of the public servant. It should consist of these three things. Okay? On this slide, I'm trying to say that in certain instances, the ethics is described as something that ends in ship. For instance, the professional ethics of the politician is called statesmanship. And that sportsmanship. Of a good carpenter, we say that that person has craftsmanship, and a good yachtsmanship. So what does manship describe? Notice, especially in the case of craftsmanship and yachtsmanship, it's not just character, it's the skill of how to operate the yacht, for instance. And in order to have the skill, you don't need to have physics of dynamics, but you need to have understanding of how a yacht works. And if that works, and people realize that you have the character, and understanding, and the skill necessary, then you win the trust and respect of the people. And that gives you power or competence to do the job. And in this case, since we're talking about the public servant, it's the job of actually managing a state. What's the difference between a state and a company? A company serves only the people who buy stocks in that company. So only a fraction of the population. Whereas the state serves each and every citizen. It says state's interest is public or universal. It leaves no one behind. It serves the interest of everyone. And of course, your immediate response is, oh, yeah, is that possible? And as I said, like the concept of justice, the concept of the state is also an regulative idea. It's something that we should strive for, perpetually and constantly. And we should not say that because a certain person, a certain sector of society is left out, that state or the justice is impossible. Learning to strive for it, recognizing the deficiency, is the important thing. Number two, so the understanding of justice. I hope that by now, this Roman law idea of justice, you're beginning to get the feel of it. Okay? I'm going to relate this to something that is more congenial to you. Okay? Now, remember, justice is the constant and perpetual will of we the people, the owners. And it is implemented by the managers that we hire, that is our public servants. And it is to provide for each citizen with his or her rights. Okay? Notice the prepositions of, by, and for. Doesn't that look familiar? Yes. Government of the people, by the people, agents, and for the people. Abe Lincoln put it very succinctly in describing democracy. But as you can see, democracy is the best instrument by which the Roman law idea of justice can be implemented. So number three, the know-how of justice. I hope that by now you will give me room to say that democracy, yeah, just might be the instrument by which to realize the Roman law idea of democracy. But democracy by itself is not enough, because the question of who has these rights, who are the citizens, these are to be decided in terms of the law of the land. And for that, we need what's called the rule of law. People tend for our common interest. Can such a political animal actually exist? And as I said, until the late 18th century, no such animal ever existed. But at the end of the 18th century, on two sides of the Atlantic, in the form of the French Revolution and the American War of Independence, mankind has actually was able to actually see these two animals in action. So yes, the answer is yes. And this is where people are empowered to become the masters rather than the servants of the system. And the system is called democracy because, as you know, in Greek, demos means people, and kratia means power, people power. That's the meaning of democracy. So, I hope that by now, this idea of democracy is there to implement the Roman law idea of justice, which is the perpetual will of the owners of the system to make sure that everyone gets their rights realized. And this has been called the principal-agent relationship. And this is to be distinguished from the patrone-clientele relationship, which is very old, again, goes back to the Roman Republic, and it still exists in Sicilia today. Two very different things. What's the big difference? Principal is the master, whereas the patron is the master. So, the people, we the people in the principal-agent relationship, we are the principal. In a patron-client relationship, people are the clients, that is, the servants of the system, exploited. So, democracy, if we can implement it to a sufficient degree, makes us the owners, the proud owners of the system. And because it's so difficult, and because this basic message is so little understood, that talk about democracy being rigged and such gets currency. The greatest threat to democracy, therefore, externally is war, because wars can destroy all democracies. Internally, it has an enemy just as dangerous as war, and that's corruption. Why? Because to the official definition of the global NGO, Transparency International, it's the abuse of public office for private gain. That is, the agent betrays the principal. And prevention of corruption, therefore, is very important to implement true democracy where we are the masters. And the usual methods that are cited for preventing corruption are usually these. But the whole idea is to make corruption irrational. That is, to make sure that corruption does not pay. Is this enough? And we have found out that it is not. All these methods have been tried by World Bank, OECD, everywhere, and the results usually are not very satisfactory. Why? We are missing something, and that is why integrity is now the buzzword in OECD and other international organizations. We found out that besides these external methods, an internal method is necessary for effective mitigation of corruption, and that is integrity of the public servant. So, what does integrity consist in? One, so, requires understanding and knowledge, and in this case, law defines justice of that matter. So, knowing the law, and then being able to act according to the law, that is, to implement justice, and then if the civil servant reflects and says, have I done my job of understanding, implementing justice correctly? Can I do better? Then we have what it takes to be a good public servant. Different from so that they can directly support their families. Then we have an institution that's pretty solid and can work to provide decent democracy. Okay? So, features of integrity we need to understand is that, well, I'm not, since we've done this, and because we're out of time, I won't go through this. But let me just remind you that the word justice is composed of the word use, which, as we saw fleetingly in the Latin expression, which is in modern parlance is right, is included in the word justice. That is, justice or justitia is the state where use or rights are being respected. The same goes in the German understanding, Recht or rights. Again, when it is respected, when a social state respects Recht, it's called Gerechtigkeit. And Gerechtigkeit is the German word for justice. So both the owners and the agents have this idea that this respect of rights is what justice is all about. Then we have social justice. And in order for we the people, not the public service, but in order for us, the owners of the system, to be responsible owners, understanding justice as being a matter of rights, we need to learn the ABCs of civic education. That is a good owner of the system. You must learn to be a good owner and be, as well as being a good user of the system. And this equals C, citizenship. And that is why citizenship is so important for democracy and justice. Thank you so much for
Thank you very much, Professor Yasutomo. Well, time is very limited right now. I might leave just only a few questions for us to ask the three professors. Any questions from the floor? Well, I'd like to, maybe I ask the questions while waiting for you guys' questions, the question from the floor, and then we can pass to the next session quickly. And while you're here with us, Professor Yasutomo, I'd like to ask a question, like, because nowadays with the technology, you know, we see that things happen at the other end of the world quickly, right? And I'd like to ask about this. Do you see that as you've been in this area for some time, for many, many years, 20-something years, with this changing technology, do you see that the improvement or the downside of the integrity of the statesmanship nowadays? Please, just a quick answer to the question.
I'm afraid it hasn't gone well so far. I was in an OECD meeting in Paris just the end of last month, and they talked about integrity and said that former ministers, former top bureaucrats, when they finish their term, they become lobbyists for Goldman Sachs and other places. And all the discussion was based on the idea that they have, if the law allows it, they have every moral right to become a lobbyist. So that's how the state of things was. Of course, I stood up and said that that's not correct. A good public servant, even when they're provided by Goldman Sachs with an offer that they cannot refuse, would still refuse to be a lobbyist. That's what integrity is all about.
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor. I'd like to pass the second question to Kun Vilaypon Lapanpong about the fintech. It's still like, get into my part about the fintech. things, you know, the Internet of Things. And my question is about this. If we cannot catch up with the technology, as you said, like we need to catch up, right? And if we cannot, will we lose the opportunity? Or what do you think? Yeah, if we really cannot, you know, like we are left behind, we cannot catch up with the internet, we don't trust the Uber, who's gonna pick us up, or we don't trust the lending system from them, using the technology. Will we lose the opportunities? Thank you.
It depends on who you are. If you're an individual or you're an organization, business owner. As an individual, you just maybe miss out on some of the exciting technologies. Like you're looking for the still fine, you just have the cab in the traditional way. They still come, they still pick you up, but it just make life so much easier. Yeah, English-speaking drivers, anywhere you want to, actually pretty attractive. I think as an individual may be okay, but as an organization, I think that's where it can be a risk or a threat to your business, because things move faster than before, and there are people who will disrupt you, people who will not be in the same industry. And disruption has become the word that business owners are thinking about every day. Who will disrupt me? Am I still going to be in business tomorrow? Am I still going to be in a business 5 years from now? So I think as an organization, as a business owner, you will miss out a lot. You're looking to this carefully, you might not be in the business anymore. Sorry to say that.
But that's very, thank you very much. That's very straightforward. But last but not least, you know, I'd like to raise the question to Representative Oki, that you were saying about the populism. What should we do then if our people are victims of the populism? What should we do? Or how can they do? Do they know themselves? I don't know whether they know themselves. But how can we do with this situation? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not a supporter of Donald Trump. In fact, I think Donald Trump is another form of opium or alcohol that's already destroying people being left behind. So quite the opposite. I think the way to stop people like Donald Trump is to help the people who are voting for him because they see no other choice. To me, that's what it comes down to. And so the question of how you help them is the crucial one. And to me, the real problem that we have is that capitalism, by escaping state boundaries, has been able to drain all the resources away from states that used to be used for paying for social safety nets. At the time of the Great Depression in the 1930s, and then after World War II again, developed states mostly put in place social safety nets to help people who were experiencing all kinds of problems of change. And we paid for those with no problem, all the way down to the point where global capital began to dominate over national capital. And then global capital would just flee to wherever tax rates were cheaper, and then states had no money to fund social safety nets. And that's what's happening. And so people, states cannot fund what they used to because capital hasn't gotten out from under the states. And the end result is we have all these people being left behind. That's the way I see it.
Thank you very much. I wish that we have like more time than this, and then we can have the discussions longer. Well, time is so limited. If anyone would like to have the questions to all three professors, we can do that after this, you know. But for this session, I might like to end it, and like also to pass on to the next session. I would like to get every one of us to join me to thank Professor James Oki, to thank Kun Vilaipon Lapakpong from PwC, and also to Professor Arikiva Yasutumo. Thank you very much.